yeah, we're not going to exert. I suspected it hotter today, you know, than obviously we're getting. It'll get hot, but not before my program's over, right? So this is how it goes, y'all. I got ready. I was typing at 8:28 trying to put in the last figures in there, and my boss comes by, Chris Wynn comes by and says, you know the printer don't work. He said, no, I didn't know. So I had to go down, and John Hoptack was kind enough to use his printer in order to do it. So I'm very happy about that right here. So this is fly by night as usual, right? I also think some of y'all can perhaps, is that thing working? Is this working? Hello? Yeah. So? We're working now. All you old hippies ought to like that. Y'all want to hear it again? That's called feedback. Y'all having flashbacks yet?
I was at that concert.
Yeah. Make a lot of money doing that. You go to Woodstock, they'll remember you forever. Just hold it by the amp, you know, just let her go. Yeah. You must need a tall stick to get out of that cotton, huh? You see out there, huh?
Moses and I had to have them.
Oh, Moses. I always heard, like, how's my mic running? We checking that mic yet? I was told years ago that if you got the deluxe tour from the NRA, this is years ago, back when Charleston Heston was president, that the grand finale, this isn't for the layman, okay? You're not gonna know. This isn't for the $50 member, okay? But the grand finale was holding the staff that Heston had in Moses. Out of all the guns in the NRA museum, you got to hold the Moses staff. Now, I don't know. That's pretty good stuff. That's pretty good company. You know, right there. See, Stuff Writer likes to get all the quirks on there. Me adjusting wired. I don't know. People are just interested in the daily minutiae of Matt for some reason. They probably watch me get out of bed if they could. Oh, look at him now. He's brushing his teeth. He looks pretty good. It's the Truman Show. Yeah, right here. I'll be glad to. So, before we begin, I'll go ahead and tell you, this is not going to be, I'm going to tell you half the story. This is not going to be, one thing we're going to do a battle walk. I do not think when we get over here to the edge of the field, I don't think there's any crops in that field. Some of y'all that know more about crops can tell me once we get over there. But if it's crops, it sure is poor. I'll say that. So I'm thinking we're going to go out in that field, make a circle, follow the brigade line, Biddle's brigade line, and then come on back. But my point to you is we're not going as long. Hopefully I have a special surprise for y'all that will occupy the majority of the end of the program. Something I didn't plan on doing, but I think you'll, doesn't even involve me. So this is not really, it's 2/3 Matt and 1/3 not me, but we got some special guests coming. Hopefully, or otherwise I'll be ad-libbing for the other third right there. We got some special guests coming at the end, which I think is absolutely, I hope, is absolutely positively going to blow your socks off. You ain't telling me that's a Mississippi State hat you got on your head back there. You got to be kidding me. It's my tour. You believe that? Tell them, girls, we've been to the Egg Bowl, haven't we? They got through ringing them cowbells out before pregame, everything. I said, what y'all got? Huh? How many cornerbacks y'all got? Because we got 5 receivers. How many cornerbacks you got? So, about the second quarter, 5 wide, and you know I'm in the cheap seat, so I can see the whole thing down below me. I whip, you know, after I got the birds out of the way. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this thing, and that guy been talking smack to me, and I said, watch this. Blip, 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 touchdown. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You know what I'm talking about? No huddle, too. It was about that fast. Blip, 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 touchdown. No, sorry.
Basically, I think
The secretary's here.
Yeah, we're back. Probably.
They're the bosses.
They are. They're what gets old Matt up in the morning. That's why Matt's white, for all of y'all staring at me right now. Is that really him? More people come up to me and like, I didn't know if it was you until you opened your mouth. Right? How's that go? How's that? All right. Where'd y'all come from? Got a whole brigade here. How you doing? I ain't seen you in a while. How you doing? How many of them are you? Hello. How are you? You're not a shy one, are you? She is, sort of. Okay. All right. Well, all right. You ready? He's back. 1 second. Yeah, probably move your camera since we won't reorient. We'll just move the camera there, and I'll stand here if you want to. That's what you the boss, you the director. We're not rolling yet, are we?
Nope.
My daddy had to go up one time. In Mississippi, they expect, if you're a long tenured employee, you're expected, the boss man is expected to get you out of jail. And that was my daddy. And so he went up there, and we had this guy named Lee Arthur. He got a call from the sheriff's department that said they had Lee Arthur up there. And so don't be taping this. And he went up there, my daddy went up to the sheriff's office, and he says, well, what you got him on? He goes, I forget what the actual charge was. It was something to do with movies. All right? So my dad bails him out, all right? He's got him in the truck. He goes, he's driving back to work. He goes, Lee Arthur, what are you doing making those movies? He goes, my dad's name was Dyer. He goes, Mr. Dyer, I wasn't in those movies. I'm the producer.
Who are you?
Yep.
Are we ready?
I guess so. Lee Arthur, I can't top that one. Really? Never heard of that before. Is my mic okay?
Yep.
Ready? Okay, like to welcome everybody to Gettysburg here on 2024. We've already got the cell phones going off behind me. I've got people looking at me all around behind this camera wondering what I'm going to say. And I don't really know what I'm going to say because I just printed this off literally 12 minutes ago. All right, so we're going to try to do what we can, but I'd like to tell everybody in 2024 that we have great weather. We have overcast. I hope it'll show up well on the film today, but I can't remember in all my days a July 1st we've ever had this cool before. You know, if you think about it. So we're very blessed about that. So, you know, as we typically do every battle walk, what I'm going to do is try to take the big picture and then go down to the small picture, because we're really minute today as far as actions. This is not one of the more famous actions that most people study for simple reasons. I think that this unit, Rowley's Brigade, Biddle's Brigade, I'm going to refer to them as Biddle most of the time. I think Biddle is overshadowed, frankly, by the Iron Brigade. I mean, they just are. I mean, it's just the Iron Brigade is too big a star. I think I already saw T-shirts, you know, with the portraying. I mean, Biddle's Brigade doesn't get a T-shirt. So they don't. But you know, as far, oh, here we go. You know who's on there?
Yeah. Chapman Biddle.
All right, who else?
And Roy Stone.
Roy
George
Stone.
Standard.
And Stannard.
Yeah, George Standard.
George Stannard from Vermont.
Yep.
Okay, so I can use 2 out of 3.
Yep.
Okay. Right there. We'll get back to you in a minute. As you can see, the T-shirt man is here in full force. Whoever the T-shirt man is. And this poor gentleman from Bill's Towing over here who just accidentally got on tape. It did not want to be. Okay. I got towed one time by Dick's Towing. Yeah. You should have seen me get in my car too. I met him. You can figure the rest. He turned out to be what he was supposed to be. And the price he named was the price I paid. And that's how that worked. Okay, get focused, Matt. So, I can't tell y'all how many times that I have driven past those monuments we're about to walk to. I mean, I just drove past them all the time. Why? Because I come down here to stop number 1, and this is where we do the programs. And all of y'all are focused on 2 things when we get to stop number 1. The average visitor is focused on 2 things, right? You're focused on the Iron Brigade, Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan, and you're focused on John F. Reynolds. Well, you should be. John F. Reynolds is a pivotal moment in this battle, you know. I mean, it's not like it's can be overemphasized or anything. But that's, once again, I think that's why Biddle is left out. So how do we get to Chapman Biddle being here on July 1st and his men? All right, so what happened so far is, as most of you well know, Biddle's brigade is not here initially, all right? Biddle's brigade is initially in the rear. The first troops I should say the 2nd Brigade on this field is going to be Meredith's brigade from the Iron Brigade, right? The 1st Brigade that marches on the field keeps going on the other side of the railroad cut. In other words, 2 Union brigades deploy, one on this side of the Chambersburg Pike and one on the north side of the Chambersburg Pike. Now, when Meredith's brigade starts charging down through here, you're right in the center of the combat right now. The Iron Brigade is going to keep advancing through the woods. They're going to push back the Confederates who have come up to the town of Gettysburg, and they have victory in their sights. You need not look any further, ladies and gentlemen, than right behind you. You have basically the same sights that the Confederates had on July 1st, and we're very blessed to have that. But you can read 1,000 books on the Battle of Gettysburg and never get it until you get it, right? The Confederates are sitting right outside the current park boundary, and they can see their objective. And they've been held up for a couple hours by this Union cavalry, and they're tired of it. Their objective is there, and this cavalry does not stop infantry. And so the division commander, shakes out a battle line, including Archer's brigade on our side, the south side of the Chambersburg Pike, Davis's brigade on the north side of the Chambersburg Pike, and they start to advance. I won't cover the north side because I don't think it's necessary, but that's going to involve the railroad cut and everything. But focusing on what we're on today, Meredith's brigade deploys and they advance this way. So the Union line is advancing down through these woods. They repulse Archer's brigade, suffice it to say. How many casualties, I could not tell you. The Iron Brigade is in for a lot more fighting before the day is over. I have no idea what they sustained in the initial action, nor do I know what Archer sustained. But I can tell you that Archer is the first Confederate commander captured, I should say general, captured from the Army of Northern Virginia during the war. And that's a big deal. In other words, this is a pretty big bloody nose for Harry Heath when they initially come out. And so, as they come up here, as the Meredith Brigade advances, that is, not telling you most of you anything, that is when John F. Reynolds is going to fall. So, follow me here, because this is the important part as it pertains to us. When Reynolds falls, his division commander, I believe it's the 3rd Division, commander, the senior division commander in the 1st Corps is a guy by the name of Abner Doubleday. All right? And Doubleday is, being senior, is elevated to Corps commander. Now, when they rode back to find Doubleday, the staff officer was incensed because Doubleday was out there with the staff playing a round of baseball, in the field that we now know. Sorry. Right there. All right. Doubleday is brought to the front. When Doubleday is promoted, then the chips fall behind him. Rowley, the brigade commander, senior brigade commander in Doubleday's division, becomes division commander. So it's now Rowley's division. And that leaves Chapman Biddle, the senior colonel, regimental colonel, who is elevated up to brigade. So once again, Corps, division, brigade, regiment. Everybody bumps up on this turn. And that's why Biddle is all of a sudden thrust into this command situation. Apparently he had been off and on June 30th, had already been in command a little bit, but July 1st, yeah. All right, so Chapman Biddle's original command is the 121st Pennsylvania. He is a Philadelphian. I believe he's 41 years old, and he is a former lawyer. Now he is a military officer. Okay, so with all that being said, Reynolds down, Doubleday up, Rowley up, Biddle up, etc., the field goes quiet for a couple hours. That is the point where we're going to take up our narrative. The Iron Brigade has advanced through the woods. I'm going to get a little bit deep in the weeds with y'all. But when you come down Meredith Avenue, I mean the modern day Park Avenue, and you see the Iron Brigade regimental markers in the woods out here, we're not going to walk down there. Interestingly enough, those monuments are not in the order of the battle. They're in the order which they were redeployed in after the attack. I know that's trivia, but that's what you people live for. That's why you buy the PCN app. So you can be down in Florida and you can watch and say, you know, honey, did you know that the alignment of Meredith's brigade is actually for the second attack in the woods, in McPherson Woods, Herbst Woods, or Reynolds Woods? Did you know that they had 3 names for the same woods? Honey? All right? Honey was not part of the battle order. Okay? But Meredith's brigade is in that alignment. So what you need to know is they're in a crescent shape. So they're basically deployed in the woods. And unlike today, it's hot. You don't want men in the sun if you can help it, especially wearing wool uniforms. It's not rocket science. You want to take care of your men. And these men are extremely hot. And the officers are supposed to do that. They're sort of like parents, you know. And men like officers who take care of them, who make sure they have food, who make sure they get shoes. You know, that's what they want. The private can't go and get a pair of shoes by himself. So anyway, they're lounging around in these woods. Now off in the distance, more Confederates are showing up. More and more Confederates are coming down the Chambersburg Pike. And Henry Heath is itching to get back at these Federals because he doesn't like losing. All right. Now, when Rowley, the division commander, arrives upon this field, he is instantly having some command and control issues. The issue, and I never thought of this because I never really studied it that hard, or the Union order of battle right here. His division of 2 brigades, Corps, division, brigade, regiment, his division of 2 brigades is split in 2. Roy Stone, the Bucktails, You know the people y'all call the fake bucktails? Oh, everybody's looking now, man. Fake bucktail. How can you have a fake bucktail? Right there, all right? Well, I'll send them spinning, won't they? So, Stone's brigade is sent over there by the highway. Follow me here. Meredith's brigade from Wadsworth's division is right here. All right? And then over here is Biddle. So you got Stone, his first brigade, and then you got a second brigade, Biddle, that has another brigade that doesn't belong to Rowley in between. Do you see what I mean? You've got, this is not a continuous line through here. This is so where's Rowley supposed to be? He can't be two places at once. You know, he tries to be. And with the brigade commander, it's like, I imagine it's like the president and his cabinet, you know? The further you go down, what are you doing, smile? The further you go down, the lower the rank of the officer, the smaller the staff. And so when you're bumped up from colonel to you basically go up to brigade commander, you don't have the staff. And when you're Rowley and you become the division commander, from brigade, you definitely don't have the staff. So he's pulled. I don't think a lot of people realize that about Rowley. Not that we're going to do the whole thing on Rowley, but he does have his own headaches when he gets out here. All right. So Doubleday's division. Remember, there were 3 divisions in the First Corps. They were Wadsworth, Doubleday, and Robinson. I don't believe I have them in order as far as 1, 2, 3 right there. Where does Robinson's division go? Oak Ridge. They go toward Oak Ridge, right over there. See, I knew I had some people out here. Like Paul Stanley said at the concert, "Kiss Army Unite." So Doubleday's division, not funny? No. Doubleday's division arrives at 11:15 and along with Robinson's division and took position behind Seminary Ridge. All right, so we're going to go to our first stop as we come up. Any questions so far about that big picture out there? Must be a big, nice camera you got back there. Yeah, I see you. I don't know how you're going to pick me up over there. Don't put him on camera, PCN. You don't put him on camera. You can't bring a tugboat to an ocean liner show. Right. Okay, so why don't we do this? We have this nice path that is cut out over here. Let's go over to the road and probably in the field. Let me see how that field is cut over. Or let's just get over here in the general direction. We'll see where we can set everybody up.
I'll come to you. You come between us.
Why, is nobody expecting to see me? Why is everybody so surprised to see me? Why is everybody so surprised to see me? Did they not advertise?
No, they didn't.
They didn't say he was going by car.
They didn't put names.
They didn't put names on it?
No.
Well, that's too bad.
You ready?
I guess we're ready. Cameron, we ready back there?
Yeah, we're ready.
I guess so. You should be at work. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to, at our last stop, we talked about Doubleday's division. Apparently, I may have, in between stops, I had a lady come up and tell me I may have confused y'all. So once again, perhaps I misspoke. Biddle jumps up to brigade command. Rowley jumps up to division command, and Doubleday jumps up to corps command.
Yep.
All right. Now I may have, you know, in this state. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about Doubleday coming on the field, and we'll see how this goes. Right here. Now, my son, everybody keeps asking me about old Ben Lee back there. Ben Lee has become quite the teenager. I'll see if I can drag him out here tomorrow, but Ben was not wanting to be awoken at 6:30 this morning, even though I put the cat on him. Do that, you know. So, we have to bring in reinforcements. So to show you in PCN world and also in YouTube world why Matt, his hair at 53 is white. In order to illustrate this, ladies and gentlemen, we now have the first half of Matt's problem right here, and her name is Emma. How about a nice warm round of applause for Miss Emma? Thank you very much. We'll read what we did this morning. We'll just read that. Let me get by you so we get the mic up. Actually, initially, let me try this on you first. Speak.
What?
What?
Say it again.
What?
All right. All right. So, I believe this comes from the history of the 20th New York. And if I use it interchangeably, I haven't announced the brigade yet, but if I use it interchangeably, it's the 20th and the 80th are the same thing. Don't ask me which one's correct. I think 80, right here. All right. So this comes from there, initially.
Initially, Rowley's brigade deployed in the woods along Hagerstown Road, right towards Willoughby Run. The Ulster Guard on the left.
That's the 20th.
What?
Pause for the periods. All right, take a breath every period.
The brigade then advanced some 200 or 300 feet through the woods on the north side of the road. When it was forced by the right flank and moved through the fields towards Gettysburg, crossing Willoughby Run between the road and the house of D. Finfrock, around which dismounted cavalry were skirmishing. When the brigade reached the foot of the ridge east of Willoughby Run, it filed to the left and took position of the line of battle on the slope of the ridge and nearly opposite of the seminary.
Behind you. Not you. What do you see? See the seminary?
Seminary facing west. 10 minutes later, the brigade was ordered to advance over the ridge near the grove where General Reynolds fell.
Okay.
Along the top of the ridge on the opposite side of the enemy's sharpshooters, and the field was alive with them. It was riven. What's that word?
Point to it. In this ravine. Hey, pause right there anyway. Right here. All right. So rehash real fast. Hold that right there. Rehash real fast. Doubleday's division, Rowley's division, is over there basically where the intersection, somewhere around the intersection of the Hagerstown Road, modern day 116, and West Confederate Avenue or Seminary Avenue. In other words, where that red light is. They're initially in that, probably close to the modern day YWCA, all right? They have apparently advanced into there was a patch of woods, which is pretty much the same patch of woods. I don't know if it was as close as it is today, but they marched them. What do officers do? They take care of their men. They marched them into the woods, and then apparently Doubleday's division, not that you need to know this, but apparently at some point Doubleday and Robinson's division were formed behind the seminary in column, not in battle formation. But that's where Robinson's division, for you Gettysburg buffs, marches north to take up their battle positions. And Rowley, I don't know if it happened simultaneously or not, but shortly thereafter, if it didn't, Rowley's division, and especially Biddle's brigade, is going to start marching over opposite the seminary and then advancing up to here. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're not moving too far, but what I'm going to do is move a few feet because I didn't set the camera up exactly right. So if we could, what we'll do is just move the camera right here so we can face toward the west. and y'all position yourself facing this way. How am I coming through anyway before we start here? Y'all here? You know, y'all don't like it, and the most complaints I get from y'all is about the people not being, the speakers not listed on the program. But this is the benefit of it. I mean, I can actually wield y'all. You know, if I get 200 people out here, it ain't happening. We're not moving on a dime out here. All right, so what she's about to describe is Biddle's brigade advancing from behind that slope where your cars are parked along Reynolds Avenue and advancing through these fields. The reason I went to all the trouble to face you this way is most of y'all never notice this, and most of y'all never pay any attention because you're not studying Biddle. But Biddle's brigade initially, they're under no attacks, but I find it interesting nevertheless. Biddle's brigade advances out to basically where you see the field ends, somewhere in there, over in that area, and they deploy basically extending to the left of the 19th Indiana, extending along Willoughby Run. Now what we've lost, unfortunately, and you know, there's probably modern development behind there. I haven't ever crossed Willoughby Run, but the trees do have a purpose to them. They block out the modern intrusions is what I'm saying. But anyway, that field, you could have seen beyond that tree line in 1863. All right? You could have seen beyond that. And so when Biddle's brigade gets along Willoughby Run, which is along that tree line right there, well, guess who's showing up in the field opposite? The Confederates. Except they can't see them. For whatever reason, there's a field of wheat. I don't know if the Confederates have dug in over there, if they've got a few little skirmish posts, you know, little holes in the ground, foxholes, even though they didn't follow them. But anyway, they can't see them. And you talk about the consternation of a private. The privates would write after the war, in so many words, who was the dumb butt that marched him out there and got him shot for nothing? Okay, so this is where she's taken up with the narrative right here, right there, in this ravine.
In this ravine, the brigade found itself under a hot infantry fire. It was unable to see the enemy from the womb
From whom
the fire came, and did not attempt to reply it. It was not probable that anyone knew just why the brigade was sent down into that valley, and it was soon ordered back over the ridge to the position from which it last marched. The Oyster Guard was then directed to take position on the top of the ridge, whether it marched and halted, remaining there in the line of battle and receiving an occasional shot from the grain field beyond Willoughby Run.
Okay. All right. Now your task is over. Thank you very much. Be a few minutes until I get up to that other quote. Oh, all right. Oh no, I've lost my compatriot here. I've got some surprises for everybody too. I can get them out. What happened here? Oh, well, can't find them. You can't find them. All right. About 10 minutes after arriving at this ravine down here, I'm going to back up the story just a moment. Wadsworth, and I mean the general himself, rode up and Colonel Gates, and ordered him to advance a company of skirmishers to the E. Harmon farm and drive out the enemy. Now, I don't know, I don't think your picture exists. Some of you picture people, experts can probably tell me faster than I could go find it. But I don't know of any picture of the E. Harmon farm that's over there. I can tell you that the ladies there, the Harmon family, the ladies that were in the farmhouse at the time, went up during the initial fighting, they went up in the second story to get a better view, and they looked west, and all of a sudden, as the lady who's writing an account, her mother looked out the window. A Confederate bullet came in and struck the shutter right next to her head from however many 100 yards away. And as they were watching out of the window, this is pretty cool too, they were watching out of the window before this bullet struck. Another bullet struck a Union officer's horse below them. And the horse and the rider went down. I don't guess it hit the rider, but the horse was dead. And the officer looked at them upstairs, those two women up there, and says, get your fool heads out of here, before you get shot. Well, what do? They go up to the Widow Walk, which is probably even more unsafe. A cupola, Widow Walk, I don't know exactly how the house looked. But the point I'm making with you is that house was so tall, whatever type of house it was, that they saw the deployment of the 11th Corps on the other side as they came in of Gettysburg. So that house had to be, up there in order for them to get that view right there. It's a pretty cool story if you ever want to check it out, about the E. Harmon Farm. I believe there was a little book written on it too.
Andrew Dalton.
Andrew Dalton. Now, what's the name of it?
Beyond the Run.
Beyond the Run. There you go, Andy. There's a plug for your book, buddy. Can you get any better right there? And to think that I had to pay last time I went to your museum. That has sold you 100 books. All right, so they send a couple of companies from the 20th New York over there, and I don't know how this happens, but and I'm not going to cover. It's not the purpose of the walk. But they actually, those Union troops stay in the Harmon Farm from Biddle's brigade. Is the reason I'm telling you this. After the Confederate advance, or right before it, and they literally are cut off, and they make their way along Willoughby Run. Once again, this tree line wasn't here. They make their way along Willoughby Run down toward that red barn, and basically make their way back to one of the Union cavalry units and report back to Cemetery Hill. If you can think about one of those anomalies in battle, I cannot figure it out, All right, so that's going to be a problem. So they go back and they go over the hill. All right. Any questions so far?
Yeah, when Bill's brigade was coming out here, were they still in column until they got down to where they deployed, or they deployed?
No, I think that they deployed in the battle formation on the opposite side of the ridge.
Thank you.
And basically they lined up with their regiments. Once we get the artillery up here, that might change slightly, but they're pretty much along with the regimental markers today. So they weren't, but they were being shot at and could not see who was shooting at them, or whatever topography feature is over there was the big thing. All right, I'm gonna get the kids out here. I thought I had a whole group of them when I started here. Is it just fine? What? Already bore them to death? No. No?
Yeah,
You done got too old for that. I'm gonna tell you. Look, you're gonna have this argument on film. Don't ever stand behind me. All right, that's more on film.
This one's coming forward.
Oh yeah, are you here? All right, come on out. Who else we got? All right, give me one more, or two more. I don't care. I'll take all of them.
They're in the back.
Here comes Mama. Come on, Spider-Man, you coming? No. All right. So, y'all just let's do it this way. I know it's gonna look a little bad on the camera, but you'll be facing the right way. Oh, here you go. All right, right here. Okay, well, we're gonna put you right here, young lady, and you two line up right on the other side, okay? And you line up right here. Okay. Now I'm getting into big picture once again. If this is Biddle's brigade, and we'll make her a little artillery battery right here. We'll bring her back in just a minute. But if these are the 4 regiments of Biddle's brigade, from left to right, When Rhodes shows up, and I'm talking Confederate right here, and I'm talking to you people, this is a battle walk. This isn't for the layman, remember. When the Confederates show up at stop number 2 at the Peace Light, all right, Biddle's brigade is facing west. When the Confederates come in from the north, from that direction, facing south, that can be a problem. It's one thing to be shooting this way, all right, as the Confederates will be doing. How many men can I take out with a cannonball shooting this way, toward the east? However, when the Confederates come in from the north, y'all don't move. When the Confederates come in from the north, and I position my artillery this way, what is the problem for the Union line? That's right. Even if I miss my target, the overshots, as it ricochets down through there, my probability of hitting somebody increases dramatically because of the angle in which I'm firing. That's an old artillery trick. We'll cover that tomorrow, more in depth with McGilvery a little bit, and the type of rounds they'd be shooting. But nevertheless, Biddle has got a problem here. So what does he do? The brigade is back here where you park your cars. Now this is the craziest thing, but you probably never even realized this. But in order to alleviate the casualties here, somewhat, what does Biddle have to do? He changes front. So what I want y'all to do is face me. Now form a line facing me. All right, you go over here. Form on the gentleman. Right here. Come on around, Aubrey. Well, you stay there by your brother. Hardest thing you ever do is meld different families together, I tell you. Yeah, I know. All right. I'm cute as a button, you know that? You do know that, don't you? What about you? You're getting tall. All right, so what does this do now? If I'm firing from this direction, what is it doing? It's not causing as many casualties. So this goes on, I don't know how long it goes, but this is what you're doing as a private, probably for an hour at least. They are positioned behind that ridge, and basically their right flank, like they are positioned now, their right flank is toward the seminary and their left flank is toward Reynolds Avenue. Except they're in that field on the opposite side. Does that make sense to everybody? Now let's rehash what has happened here so I can get y'all into Biddle, where Biddle fits into this action right here. There's been one Confederate attack. We've covered that. Now Heath is going to attack again later in the afternoon. That's probably going to be, 2 or 3 hours later when he starts his advance. What has happened in the meantime? More Confederates have shown up at stop number 2 and over here at Barlow's Knoll. So the first thing that happens is the Confederates are attacking basically from left to right, their left to right, not the Union left to right, but Confederate left to right. And that attack rolls around the town of Gettysburg until it gets to Heath's division. And Heath has been standing there, and he's been wanting another shot at these Yankees. He doesn't like the first action between Davis and Archer. He doesn't like the way his men performed. He's a combat general, and he feels it reflects badly on him, which it does. So he wants another shot. So when they start attacking, Robert E. Lee apparently personally, or at least we don't have any accounts of A.P. Hill, maybe it went through the chain of commands, but it reads in Heath's memoirs as if Lee ordered him directly to advance. When they advance again, this is going to be Pettigrew's brigade coming, not Archer. This is the 2nd Confederate Brigade, and this thing is huge. So, but my point, going back to Biddle, when Pettigrew's North Carolinians start advancing, y'all don't move. When Pettigrew's brigade starts advancing, here's not a division commander yet, all right? When he starts advancing this way and toward the Confederate position, what is the problem for Biddle right now? That's right, he's lined up different. He's lined up the wrong way. All right, you kids go back to your first position. There you go. And we have the laggard. on the end. My eye roll is better than anything else in Pennsylvania. I have perfected it. You think so? Let me try.
No, I think they got a pretty good one.
Let me try.
Good job.
That's when I know I'm being effective. All right. So what do? They reorient and they face back toward the west, right? And so that is when, ladies and gentlemen, they come up over the crest of that ridge. And that's where we're going to be headed to today. I'm basically going to take y'all down Reynolds Avenue, and we're going to come back and following Biddle's line as it comes back toward Reynolds Woods. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
And so I'm going to touch on each unit as we come down through here. But this is the big picture. There are 2,500 North Carolinians coming. For you Gettysburg buffs out there, I'm getting real deep in the weeds here. Pettigrew's right flank probably rested on the Old Mill Road or somewhere around there. And if you go, you got to go back through Hare's Ridge all the way down. 2,500 men may have been the biggest brigade in Robert E. Lee's army. If it wasn't, it was sure close. Now, how do you get 2,500 men in a Confederate brigade in 1863? You do that because they haven't seen any combat of any significance. And these units, these 4 regiments, Corps, Division, Brigade, Regiment, these 4 regiments comprising Pettigrew's brigade are huge. The 26th North Carolina is over 800 men. And 2 more, the 47th, 52nd, we're going to be following a little bit today. They're over 500 men apiece. And then you got the 11th North Carolina, which I believe. Yeah. So, I mean, that line, ladies and gentlemen, you could have seen it as a Union soldier coming all the way towards you. Now, I'm going to ask you, you don't have to, I'm not going to tell you what's happening right now, but Biddle is coming on the field. As he comes out, he has got approximately, he's probably got about 1,200, 1,300. 2,500 versus 1,300. Now that's a little bit skewed because the 26th is going to take on the Iron Brigade by itself. Maybe portions of the 11th right here. So let's make the odds even worse. Okay, you probably got about 900 Union troops up against probably about, oh Lord, you probably got nearly 1,500 Confederates coming, 1,600. Something like that. There's no more men. And Reynolds is dead. Doubleday is in charge. I don't know what Doubleday is going to do about it. I mean, you can't produce what you don't have. But I'm setting up the scene for you, ladies and gentlemen. What is the scene? These Union troops already know, from the private up to the general, even in the Iron Brigade, that this is crazy. There's no way that we're going to be able to hold this position. They are veteran infantry. Any questions?
How many people died of the Iron Brigade because they was, the first ones to battle?
This is hard to say. I can get you total casualties, but I can't get you
Okay.
itemized per
It
combat
was really bad.
with
right?
that. But I can tell you pretty much that the Iron Brigade is used up because of Gettysburg. I mean, fame does come with the cost. Ask the Texans. He said they took them 15 minutes to get the reputation at Gaines Mill and almost killed all of them for the next 3 years to maintain it. You can have these things. A couple of things before we move away from this story. The shot from Oak Hill before they switched back, the one Union soldier said that, quote, the shot and shell swept the line from the right to the extreme left. Excuse me. And the position had become untenable. Back at the seminary, Private Peter Drumheller of the 151st Pennsylvania had his abdomen torn open and his legs severed by a cannonball. We don't think about that. His last words were, "I am shot." Well, I think he was. If I came along, I probably concur. As a result, that's why Biddle is changing front. All right, so the time we're at right now, ladies and gentlemen, is around 12:30. And 20 minutes later, according at least to the 20th New York, at 12:50, Early's division is arriving on the Harrisburg Road. All right. Let's do this. I believe I want to try to keep off this farmer's soybeans as much as I can. Why don't we, we're going to about face, and basically, where did Hope go? I know I got Hope somewhere around here. Hope, you lied back there. Come on up here, Hope. Let's make your introduction. I used to call her Hope Dime, but her real name is Hope Nickel. I'll guarantee you. But you can call her a quarter or a $50 if you like. It doesn't matter right there. All right. So here is this year's 2024 intern, Miss Hope Nickel. Pick up some of this mic right here. What school you from?
I'm from Miami University in Ohio, so kind of a weird switch there, but
Miami University
it's
of
the
Ohio.
Original Miami. So for all of you Floridians out there, I have it out for you.
That's pretty good. Most of the time these interns don't talk at all. So there you go. So what are you working on right now?
I've been doing artillery programs, so I'm about to start doing a cemetery program as well. So a lot of research, a lot of talking. Yeah.
Obviously a history major.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you want a Park Service career?
It's in the cards.
It's in the cards, right? What'd they say? Oh, I can't think of the name of the movie. Show me the money. Who was it?
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. What was the name of it? Here before. I'm horrible with that. Anyway, if we have any problems on the back, I've got Bob and I've got Hope. It's the only two people I see around here. But if you have any issues or what, this is what they're here for, all right? So let us know, okay? All right. So let's about face, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go back to the road. Let me get in front of the pack, and we'll probably just cross the road and then march on the other side of the vehicle, so we won't be blocking anybody. Right? Where's my girls? All right. Where did the
Where's the rest of your brigade?
Yeah, where's the rest of my brigade? All right, come on up. You always with your daddy. Come on. What they tell me. Where's Emma? Y'all come on. Bring your friends. Where are you? Y'all come on.
I got sidetracked by the little squirrel.
Thank you, buddy. Oh, squirrel. Let's face this way. Face this way. Toward the road. Face toward the road. Toward me. Face toward me. Like a prayer. There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. That's fine. That's fine. We're not going any further. All right. What picture you got? Joe Bissett, photographer. You know how much that picture cost? I know him. All right. Okay. When Heath advances with Pettigrew's brigade, Biddle changes from the facing north to the west. We've covered that. His line contains the following units, which I have not set up yet. Okay, right here. 121st Pennsylvania, 263 men. What has caused me great aggravation is that the commander of the 121st was apparently Chapman Biddle's brother. So you actually have a Biddle take the command of take the place of a Biddle, which drives me crazy because they all sign their name Biddle, and I don't know which one is saying. So here's the 121st, 263 men, right here, right here. is the 80th or 20th New York with 287 men right there. All right. And followed right here, you passed the artillery pieces. This is the reason those artillery pieces are there, people. This, ladies and gentlemen, this, ladies and gentlemen, is Reynolds or Breck's battery, 1st New York Light Artillery, battery E and L, 2 sections right here. Now, what I mean by a section, I'm going to get real technical with you. A section in a battery is 2 guns, right? A section is 2 guns. There are, in a Union battery, there are 3 sections or 6 guns. In a Confederate battery, there are 2 sections usually. All right, so most of them are 6. Most of them are get a pass. We'll get going. Out of the 3 sections in Reynolds battery, I did not know this. All right, until I started researching this program. They actually turned sideways in a hurricane, right? They're blown by. They actually, ladies and gentlemen, sent 1 section or 2 guns over to the McPherson barn. And those guns apparently get there and they are not there long. But when Pettigrew, Brockenbrough's brigade comes up, they deploy and they start firing. Yeah, I was wondering if y'all could hear over there. All right, so that leaves us 2 more sections, which means 4 guns. Those 4 guns remain with Biddle. Now I have lost a lot of hair trying to figure out. Thank you, ma'am. Big, bald, and beautiful. There it is. There. I have lost a lot of hair trying to figure out exactly which battery was there, which one. There's some early histories of the battle that I believe they have Cooper's battery out there. So it caused me a lot of confusion. But the 2 sections here are under the command of Breck. You don't hear that name a lot either. B-R-E-C-K. Okay, so let's get into the action. So they are followed by Reynolds or Breck's battery. So let's rehash. 121st Pennsylvania, 80th New York, Breck's battery, 4 guns. Turn around, we gotta get that on camera. All right, right there. Then the 142nd Pennsylvania is going to be here, and the 151st, the last regiment, is going to stay. Walk behind them, right over there. Stand right there. The 151st is going to be right over here on the other side of this tree line. They would actually, once again, for you hardcore Gettysburg people, they would actually be in the breastworks, the earthworks, the temporary earthworks that are in front of the seminary. That's where they're positioned. All right, later inhabited by the Iron Brigade. We'll get back to that in a second. All right, so we got 3 regiments up here in this battle line. In total, about 900 men. Biddle's line did not stretch to where you entered the tour road today. Biddle's line basically stretched, ladies and gentlemen, over here to where you see that flank marker. Okay, and that's the end. Now, once again, let's rehash. You can see all those North Carolinians coming. And that North Carolina line would have stretched beyond that red barn. Now, if the end of the Union line is here, and Pettigrew's brigade stretches past that red barn over there, what is the problem? Right, the Confederates are going to overlap them. And you don't have to be a general to figure that out. Okay, that's the reason that this is going to go so bad so quickly out here. All right, so he doesn't have enough men. He falls 400 yards short of the Hagerstown Road. All right, Pettigrew from the Confederate side advances from left to right, covered this a little bit. The 26th North Carolina, the 11th North Carolina, the 47th North Carolina, which is going to be directly in our front, and then the 52nd North Carolina, which is going to be over to your left. As I said earlier, the 47th and 52nd are 500 plus through here. All right, so let's start. 121st, we're just going to work our way down the brigade line. 256 men. They probably had around a little over 200 on the firing line. That's not that many. They open on the 52nd North Carolina, but soon the North Carolinians wrap around the flank of the Pennsylvanians and deliver, quote, a crushing fire. All right, so, do I have any more kids?
There's one in the back still.
Is there one in the back? Spider-Man, are you ready to do your duty? What about that other kid back there? I see two boys. What are they doing?
You can always count on them to ride each other out.
Hulk, you coming? Well, send me one of them.
They don't want to go out.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. Come over here. So what do they end up doing? 52nd North Carolina, just stand right here. The 52nd North Carolina is bigger than them. Right? Put your arms up. Put your arms up. Right here. Look how his right flank overlaps the left flank. What's going to end up happening? The Confederates advance first, and then they start wrapping around the flank of the Union. So they deliver, quote unquote, a crushing fire. They're not only getting hit from the front, they're getting hit from the side. Biddle attempted to change front. In other words, he tried to shift this brigade around to meet the 52nd. And, but, quote, the ranks were broken and became massed together during the movement. And in other words, all heck broke loose when they tried to change front under fire. I keep turning, y'all. I don't mean to present my back, but I'm trying to get out of the wind here. The survivors broke for the seminary, and Sergeant Charles Atlee from the 121st said later that the men moved, that the men's movement, quote, was remarkable, probably the best on record. I don't know if he meant that with sarcasm, but I take it that way, all right? All right, Union artillery begins to unlimber as Pettigrew advanced. And next in line would be the 20th or the 80th New York. Now, when I say 4 guns from Rex when we get down here in a minute, that's going to make Biddle's brigade into 2 halves. Now, I don't know if this happened because where'd the T-shirt man go? Yeah. Come on up. Identify who you got here. You got
Chapman Biddle, Roy Stone, and George Standard.
All right, now identify. So you got Biddle here.
Roy Stone.
Roy Stone.
And George Standard.
Okay, so we're going to ignore him. I'm going to leave my hand awkwardly right here. Oh, I don't know when. We never communicate, but he always shows up with this T-shirt. I'm going to tell you, you must have a heck of an electric bill. This guy is in charge of the brigade, but this guy, Stone claims, Biddle claims that he commanded the whole brigade. Stone, of course, is going to be out here by the Hagerstown Road, the Chambersburg Road, and then the 20th New York commander is going to claim that he commanded half the brigade. In other words, he's going to claim that Biddle, can I get you to stand up, rally for a minute? All right. And what did I have here? Okay. He claims that Biddle, the 20th New York commander, claims that Biddle commands these 2 and that he commands over here. So in other words, they split the brigade. I don't know if I believe that or not, because the guy that writes the 20th New York, Colonel Gates, man, he sure does love Colonel Gates. So we'll see if that's here. All right. Okay, so we're going to come up here and we're going to have, now we're going to have give you a curveball here and let you read something you weren't prepared. All right. I know it. Kill me later. Start talking. We're going to talk here. It's my fault. My fault. All right. This is Aubrey, everybody. Come on up here, Emma, so they can compare you. Emma Sider, right there. All right. All right. The enemy?
The enemy were moving down the Hagerstown Road and would soon have turned our flank, taken the brigade in reverse. It was almost as dangerous to retreat as to remain, for we were now receiving fire on both flanks as well as in front, but no remain was to be captured. But to remain was to be captured, and pouring on a volley into the enemy as they came rushing up the slope in front, and at short range the order to retreat was given.
Okay. All right. No applause needed. She's got the next stop too. Let's walk on down. Y'all in the back. Let's walk on down to that next monument and we'll reconvene right there, okay? We're not walking far. We're going to start making our way back towards stop number 1. So much for them friends here. Man, thirst for water. All right.
Yeah, I saw that first score, 79-80.
All right, where'd my reader go? Aubrey, where are you, darling?
He abandoned you. Loving the puppy.
Oh, loving the puppy dog. All right, we'll go.
They left me behind. They abandoned Ryan.
Yeah, y'all take a look because we're getting we seem to be growing in size. But y'all, why don't you people behind me? Why don't you get to my left and right, and we'll get this cleared out, and you can see where they're coming from over through here. All right, so we're just working our way down. Now we're at the 80th New York Monument, which is right to the right of the camera. I don't know how that works out, but if you look up top, you see 20th New York State Militia or 80th New York Infantry. As I said, it's caused me a try trying to research that on the email. Excuse me, internet. Now, Colonel Gates claimed that he controlled, as I said earlier, the 2 left regiments and Biddle the 2 right. He also claims that the right wing fell back first, which would mean the other side of these cannons. I don't know. Seeing this, Gates claims he returned, that previously he claims that he had taken the regimental colors. Somebody from New York's going to have to help me here. These regimental colors were made by the women from, I'm going to slaughter this, from Saugerties? Saugerties. Saugerties.
Just like it's spelled.
Just like it's spelled, yeah. S-A-U, how do you say that? S-A-U-G-E-R-T-I-E-S. Saugerties. That suits me. As compared to Sukhotanchi. Schenectady. Sukhotanchi's back in Chickasaw County. Colonel Gates claimed to have taken the regimental colors made by the women of Saugerties and hoisted them over his shoulder and called upon his men to stand by them. After the war is over, and I don't come out here and tell you that this happened where, some authors will tell you this, but there were North Carolina veterans after the war that, at least one in particular, that tried to look up the Union officers that he was shooting at on July 1st that had those colors up there. And he kept missing him, and it was irritating. You know, we'll get around to that in a minute. But I believe Gates had the colors, or at least he claims to. But my problem is Biddle, Chapman Biddle apparently claimed to also. And and it may be both of them are right. I'm not discounting either man, but I don't know which one the North Carolinian was shooting at, you know, when he was coming forward. So hard for me to figure that out. All right, so beyond a doubt, Union soldiers across this ridge could see the Confederate line, which outdistanced the Union. Colonel Wainwright thought that, staff officer thought that Pettigrew's advancing battle line was at least a half a mile long. All right, so let's look at this from a Confederate standpoint. Aubrey, you through petting that dog? Now who's the bad guy? You. Yeah. Killjoy.
Can the dog come with us?
The dog up here, come on, I don't care, y'all can get the dog. I don't know if that dog's gonna leave the master though.
Nope.
No.
It might actually fit better. I don't think that's the way it reverse it. I think we need to reverse it. Now try it that way. Now there we go. Now bend it to where you don't squeak, but you can be heard. All right. This is what. All right.
Do I read this?
Okay. So this is from. I'll read it. 47. No, don't go anywhere. 47th North Carolina. This is an account by John Thorpe from Company A. This is one of the rare Confederate accounts we actually have of this. And Miss Aubrey's going to read this for you. All right.
The memorial.
The morale.
The morale of
The unit.
Of the unit was splendid, and when it advanced to its first grand charge, it was with the feeling of
Conquerors. All right. We
were met by a furious storm of shells and canisters, and further on by the more destructive rifles of the two Army Corps confronting us. One shell struck the right company, killing 3 men and exploding in the line of fire closest by. The concussion fell to the earth, every one of them. The other companies were faring no better. Still our line, without a murmur, advanced delivering its steady fire and amid the rebel yells, and closed with the first line of the enemy. Ooh.
We have a tick. Oh, you're laughing, aren't you? This battery commander. Hold the paper. I can't tear its legs off. Now in the South, it's considered rude to throw these things away. What are you saying? You know? So what I like to do, you can do whatever you like. Some people like fire. Some people like slow death. Some people like what do you call it? Wrench, vice, whatever. I just take their legs off. And, you know, they're like a tank without a tread, missing a tread, you know. They don't do anything but do it, sir. Well, they're the one trying to bite me. I didn't crawl on me. They crawled on me. I'm doing nothing to them. All right. So where were we?
I don't know.
All right, they close with the first line of the enemy.
After a desperate struggle, this yielded, and the second line was met and quickly broken to pieces.
What does that mean? What does he mean? He means that the Union infantry is on this crest of this ridge, and they're shooting it out with them. The North Carolinians are out in this field right in front of you, okay? When they're shooting it out with them, they get the Union to fall back. And the Union troops, somehow, I picture the Union Biddle's line is going this way. I know it doesn't make much sense on camera, but that's why you're standing here in person, right? The Union line does not retreat straight back. It unravels. Why is it going this way instead of that way? That's right. You got Confederates shooting down this ravine. Now look at it, ladies and gentlemen. If you get rebels on the edge of this field, and you're the Union, and you got rebels pouring over the top of the crest of this ridge, now look behind you. Look at that field, and you're trying to hold these rebels back, and you're trying to keep your line organized, and they're basically got you in a crossfire. And they're good enough men, veterans, in order to bring it about. They probably don't have to be ordered. You know, they know a good shot when they see one. So they're just wheeling. So what you see here in this field behind you is dead center for chaos and confusion. I put very little, like, I'll give you an example, like the peach orchard fighting. When they're going back and forth, I put very little faith in what's going on, at the accounts of what's going on. I imagine there was a patch of this unit here and a patch of that unit there, and that's probably true with Biddle's brigade here, but I bet this line is melting, and it's melting fast under the stress. All right, now you're gonna like this. Check out the what the Confederates have to do here. And I've read this from the Union standpoint too.
The day was a hot one, and the men had difficulty in ramming down their cartridges. So slick was the iron ramrod in hands, thoroughly wet with
sweat. Just say sweat. Perspiration. All expedients
were resorted to, but mainly jabbing the ramrods against the ground and rocks.
Freeze right there. You hear what she's saying? They were sweating so much they couldn't grip the ramrod. They could not grip the ramrod from the sweat running off their hands, so their hands are slipping. They can't get the bullets down into the base of the gun. So what do? They insert the bullet, they get the ramrod in there, and they find a rock. And they're hitting the ramrod against the rock to pound the bullet down into the base of it. It's that hot out here. All right.
All expended this with the
usual
causes underdress to our advancing line. Still all were yelling and pressing forward through the growing wheat breast high.
Through the growing wheat, which was breast high.
Third line of the enemy.
No, right here. Up above. Toward.
High toward a body of the enemy in sight, but beyond the range of our guns, when suddenly a third line of the enemy arose 40 yards in front, as if by magic, and leveled their shining line of gun barrels, one on the wheat heads.
Pause right there. You hear what she's saying? Those Union troops, when they came up right here, they leveled their muskets, and it was wheat high. In other words, they shot at the wheat heads, the heads on the wheat. And when you shoot at that level, what are you getting? When you instruct soldiers to line up with the head of the wheat, with the top of the wheat, what are you ensuring is happening if everything is level? Your shot is going straight, right? That's how it's happening. Okay, where are we? We're almost.
Though taken by surprise, the roar of our guns sounded along our whole line. We had caught the drop on them.
Redoubled
Our yells and a rush, and the work is done. The earth just seemed to open and take in that line, which 5 minutes ago was so perfect.
What do? They get up on top of this ridge right here, ladies and gentlemen, and they see those Union troops come up and they start firing at them, and they're on top of them. They raise a yell and they go in like combat veteran troops would, you know. And so they start pushing them. They start pushing them back. Any questions so far?
Nice reading.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, let's move on down to the next monument down there, and we will reconvene. Remember when they had the cross and the German was up there? Was that the big red one?
Yep.
Yeah. I forget what if the cross was ever why it had a purpose in it.
It was a World War I monument.
That's right. We're getting into the 47th, 50. I don't know. Let me just say what I do know and I don't know. I don't know the exact stopping point of the 52nd North Carolina and the 47th North Carolina. I don't know anybody that does. I could go out there and guess with you. But they're two large regiments. What I'm saying to you is I don't know out of 1,000 Confederates out here who's shooting at who. Or what unit they're up against. You know, they're probably just shooting at everybody. Oh, look there, Bob. Let's shoot him. No, Phil, I believe I'll take a shot over here. You know, I did have that glimpse, though. Every once in a while, you'll run across a glimpse of how soldiers think. This is from the 151st, from their leader, McFarland. He talked about real briefly about, and he was an old man, but you could tell, you know, it was coming back to him. He talked about standing there here on July 1st, and the Union soldiers standing on this ridge line firing, and he recorded what he remembered them saying. And the Union soldiers, if you can imagine something abstractly as this, he would go, the soldiers would say to each other, that one fell, got him. That one fell nicely, I'll get him. They're picking out targets. They're talking to each other as they're firing through there. You know, oh, I'm going to try for him over here. Watch this. I'm going to bring down the flag bearer. Stuff like that, you know. It seemed to be a lot calmer than I imagined, at least for that brief moment. And I guess it has to be if you're going to be able to shoot straight. The 142nd, Private Edwin Gerhard, recalled that, quote, the Rebs kept steadily advancing until we could see their officers stepping in front, swinging their swords. Suddenly a cloud of smoke arose from their line, and almost instantly the balls began to whistle about us. Captain Horatio Warren remembered men, quote, mowed down by the terrible fire from front and flank, and then in sheer desperation we were ordered to charge. That order came from the brigade commander, Colonel Chapman Biddle. And Biddle, once again, just like Gates, grabs the regimental colors and led the men back into the fray. John Thorpe, who Aubrey was reading from just a minute ago from the 47th North Carolina, recalled the moment. He said, just then a federal officer came in view and rode rapidly forward bearing a large federal flag. Can you imagine, in the midst of these bullets, some guy comes up over this ridge with the U.S. flag flying? Can you imagine? I mean, that's 4th of July stuff if you ever had it, right there. The scattered Federals swarmed around him as bees covered their queen. Isn't that cool? In the midst of this, oh, I'm glad you're not here, Aubrey. In the midst of a heterogeneous.
There you go.
I want you to know my mother guided me through the Mississippi public education system. I would start the school day. I would come home first day of school. She would ask me what teachers I had, and by the second or third day, I was picking my books up and moving to another class. And I never knew why until I was an adult. And that's how she did it. Right up there. Whoa. Don't get me started. All right. So, they scattered. Just then, a federal officer came in view and rode rapidly forward, bearing a large federal flag. The scattered Federals swarmed around him as bees cover their queen. In the midst of a heterogeneous mass of men, acres big. Can you imagine? Acres big. He approached our left, when all guns in front and from right and left turned on the mass and seemingly shot the whole to pieces. In other words, these North Carolinians appear over the crest of this hill, and those Union troops are right in front of you. I'm not saying point blank range, but they're out in the middle of that field right there. And these North Carolinians, where you're standing right now, shoot that mass of unorganized Union soldiers until most of them either break or most of them are laying there dead and wounded. Can you imagine doing that to your fellow man? That, ladies and gentlemen, is combat. Now, he ends the account. Of course, they were victorious. Many were the incidents narrated on that beautiful moonlit night. Losses were heavy. One company had 5 men, and the 142nd, one company had 5 men out of 34 left. Company K had only 3 men. And Company B of the 142nd, Samuel Enos and Adam Kramer. Samuel Enos and Adam Kramer, all 3 brothers of the 142nd, all died on July 1st. Can you imagine? I got my kids up here today, and a lot of you are parents. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that news hitting back home? I mean, it's bad enough to lose one of them. Wow. Lose 3 in one day? Wow. Colonel Robert P. Cummins was mortally wounded trying to rally the men also. All in all, 560 men were casualties out of the 886 men who went forward that day. Killed, wounded, and captured. Now that's 3 regiments. All right, and that's the imprecise total, so don't go out and put that on the guide exam. It's coming up in December. No, I don't know what's going to be on the exam, so don't. We can skip that question right here. But where did we leave our last stop, ladies and gentlemen? Where did we leave the 151st Pennsylvania? We left back there in front of the seminary. Okay, so here's your scene. Look behind you or in front of you if you're over here. Look at the brigade line. Look at the brigade line unraveling. Imagine as Pettigrew's brigade is coming up and engulfing these men. At that moment, when they are falling back, 400 and some odd men of the 151st Pennsylvania are advancing across this field. They probably look like a whole brigade. They were so thick. They come advancing across this field, ladies and gentlemen, and up to McPherson's Woods, into that area. And this is the last reinforcements. So, the timing of it, I'm not apt to say, okay? I'm not really comfortable saying when they get here and when they don't. We'll cover that when we get up here. Does it make sense to everybody, though? Mm-hmm. You basically have 2 separate actions here. All right, well, let's go on. Let's go back to where you see the boss man coming right now. Over here. Y'all remember the gentleman that shut me down from Farnsworth, right? Yeah. Well, there he is. You can put in all your complaints. There he is, right there.
Where Company D was running.
Yes.
McFarland, Calendar.
Is he buried there?
I'm not sure where he's buried. I'll have to look that up.
You know, 7th son of his 7th son.
Was it? Yeah.
Not one of their well-known. I saw that Beast tour.
Oh, you did?
Reunion of the, what was it called? Return of the Beast?
Pardon me.
Maiden. All right, I'm gonna, I told y'all I had a surprise for y'all, and I think this surprise is a lot better than my program, okay? Because this is gonna, if this doesn't cock your pistol, I don't know what's gonna do it. All right, we're rolling, I guess we're rolling. All right, well, I didn't mean to say that on PCM, but I guess that's what just happened.
Well, that's good reason for editing.
All right, so, okay, so we got 3 regiments. Look at where y'all came from. All right, look at where the battle line is. Now, why are we all the way up here in these woods with 151st Pennsylvania? All right, the reason is that the 151st is advancing from the seminary. Now you can see it better, and they're advancing straight across here. Now, the 151st was known as the school teacher regiment. Although only 60 men listed the occupation, the guy leading them was 5'6", 145 pounds, 28-year-old, square-jawed, broad forehead with a beard, gentleman named George McFarland. and he was one of 60 educators, having been the headmaster at McAllistersville Academy. Am I making you happy right now?
Oh, yeah.
All right. When the war broke out, he enlisted in September of '62. We ought to have somebody in the crowd know something about September of '62. And at the regimental organization received the lieutenant colonel's position. He at once set about to study the manuals, etc., even down to camp sanitation. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, McFarland could read. Y'all laugh it off, but that's not a given back in the thing, so they put him in charge. When Colonel Allen went home on sick leave, that left the young lieutenant colonel in charge at Gettysburg. Now, the 151st is ordered to advance to fill the gap between the Iron Brigade and the right flank of Biddle, the 142nd. They were positioned, as I said earlier, in the breastwork built by Paul's brigade at the seminary. The rest of the brigade was probably in the act or not far from starting their retrograde movement to the seminary. In other words, when the 151st comes up, that line was probably starting to unravel. Over here, you've got the Iron Brigade, completely different units from the Union Army, falling back through the woods. So, 151st comes into both halves retreating. Now, there's a couple of reasons that this may or may not have happened. One, Meredith's brigade, their men may have thought that the 151st was their relief. That may have been a perception. Number two, the Iron Brigade may have shot up all their ammunition. And that's even more possible. But regardless, apparently the Iron Brigade retreated past the 151st and was reforming in that swell on the other side of the road when all this occurs. All right. I can't imagine, ladies and gentlemen, what these men, these Union soldiers thought, the 151st thought when they crested this ridge and they saw that Confederate battle line for the first time. Private Randall Sayre of Company B said, "This was the first sight I had of the rebel stars and bars. There was a full regiment from 50 to 100 yards in front when they got here." Wow. 151st opens fire. The instructions Schoolmaster McFarland now paid dividends. Quote, "Having previously cautioned the men against excitement and firing at random, and the enemy being partly concealed in the woods on lower ground than we occupied, I did not order them to fire a regular volley, but each man to fire as he saw an enemy on which to take a steady aim. This was strictly observed, and during the next hour's terrific fighting, many of the enemy were brought low." Corporal Nathan Cooper observed also that his gun on this hot day became too hot to handle. Couldn't fire it anymore. All right. The unit, as they conduct a fighting withdrawal, and they're going to lose some more at the seminary, so I'm not saying everything is left here. Out of 467 officers and men, they lose 337. That total is only exceeded by the 24th Michigan. And that loss is here, right here where you're standing. Okay, so in conclusion, Biddle's brigade, in some stretch or form of imagination, falls back to Seminary Ridge, and I can tell you at that point that some of them do rally. How many, I could not tell you, but they do shake out a battle line. I imagine most of them were done, but they do get a semblance of a battle line, and they have about 20 to 30 minutes to rest and replenish and respite, because here comes Pender's division attacking right through here, and they attack the seminary. We're going to gloss over the seminary. I hate to do it because it's heavy fighting, but I got more important things to talk about right here. But they lose more men, but that's where they break from. That's the final push right over there. The brigade, Colonel Gates of the 20th New York, claimed it was about 5:30 when they reached Cemetery Hill. In all, the losses were very heavy. The 121st Pennsylvania, 263 men, lost 179. That's 68%. 142nd Pennsylvania, 335 men, 211. 62%. 151st Pennsylvania, I already said, 467, 337. 72%. Because they're out here. Look behind you, North Carolinians. When they got out of here, those North Carolinians were shooting them coming across this ravine. From the front and from the flank. It's a slaughter out here. I think I've covered everything. 142nd. Did I say that one? No. Okay. 80th New York. 287 men, 170 lost. 59%. All right, let me take a moment here to say something about me, all right, and about Matt Atkinson, about how lucky I've been in my whole career right here. And I don't mean I got to get these people up here and got to get them going because we're going to run out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, when I left Gettysburg and moved to Vicksburg to get a promotion, to become a 579. And my odds of coming back here, you can imagine applying at Gettysburg, are very, very, very slim. All right? When Angie and I applied to come back to Gettysburg, they had 2 positions open. Angie is who they wanted. Angie is who they wanted, and they take me, all right? They take me as a consolation prize, all right? But Angie is who they wanted right there because she's squared away and everything. Well, folks, let me tell you how life rolls. She came in number 1, and I came in number 3. And I was getting ready to leave the Park Service, and number 2 turned it down. And that's why I'm standing here. And the reason I'm standing here in part is because I had people throughout my career that helped me. All right? In that particular moment, I got lucky. But the reason I got chose at number 3 is I had a former boss that taught me quite a bit about Civil War and about researching and about how the presentation, in fact, I talk about him every time I go out and do Pickett's charge. He will deny it, but I swear to God, my first audit, he told me that there's 147 cannon during Pickett's charge. And for 25 years, it has been 147 cannon. I don't care who it is. You can say 150. No, it's 147 cannon. Learn it now. Ladies and gentlemen, also who taught me to research and who has institutional knowledge was the librarian of the park, John Heiser. And we lost, I can't tell you how much time it has taken me to find the information that I could have just gone and asked him about when he was here. And he'd point me right to the source, and he could tell me whatever I needed to know, and he would straighten out whatever flaws I had in whatever program that I had right here. Those 2 gentlemen, John Heiser and Scott Hartwig, are some of the most influential people upon me and some of the most influential people on Gettysburg National Military Park. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased that they are here today to talk to you about the Harvest of Death photo, which occurred right here where we're standing. How about an old Gettysburg round of applause for our two veterans?
I heard my name in there.
Oh, D. Scott. Here goes all the girls. D. Scott's here. Oh my God. Oh, it's Scott Hartwood. He's back. Oh, he looks so nice in the front hat.
Oh, man.
Okay, so we're gonna cut the cameras for just a second because we only have an X amount of mics. We only have 2, and I'm gonna pull my mic off. So we're gonna take a break for about 30 seconds here and switch out mics, and they'll be right back with you.
I can, yeah.
Go ahead.
We have another mic though. We're gonna have 2 mics.
Oh,
Y'all want
whatever's
any of y'all
handy for you
want the
guys.
squawk box?
Let's just stand there and pass the mic back and forth.
No, I have one for one.
I think.
Oh, well, okay. Man, you got a lot of equipment on there.
Yeah. Worse than a cop. I knew exactly what happened to that lady in Oakland when she grabbed the wrong thing. I can tell you that.
But at least they don't give you a gun.
No, they don't give me a gun.
I would trust him with one.
I would trust with a taser, trust me. He'd do it, taser himself.
He probably would.
We'd make him keep a bullet in his pocket.
Yeah, Barney.
Yeah,
Barney's
just
wife. Yeah, get a bullet in the pocket. I'm very pleased to have these gentlemen here, and very kind of them to come out.
Nice of you to ask us that.
Yeah, we don't see, you know, some people, y'all probably seen it in your own life, some people just can't leave, you know. When Scott Hartwood and John walked out the door, they didn't come back. And you saw what Scott's been up to. You know, we had active shooter training the other day. I said, don't worry about it. I got Hartwood's book. Which is a problem oh my God, if I could write half as good as he does.
All right, you just tell us.
Okay, this is, y'all gonna run the show however you like. I would move them a couple of times, so it's yours from here on out. You're in charge. It's the old battle walk, and you just lead them wherever you want. I'm gonna let y'all 2 do it. All right. In other words, I'm gonna bow out of the picture.
You stay right near us.
We're keeping an eye on you, Matt.
We need the moral support, man.
I need to tie up Chris with conversation so he doesn't look at his watch.
Don't
see?
wander away, because we're going to turn it back over to you for the conclusion.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, there you go. All right.
All right.
And to air some level of legitimacy, I brought my old Park Service hat.
Oh, wow. There we go.
All right, Johnny.
On your job.
You just tell us whenever you're ready. Good. Okay, Johnny.
Hi. Hey, good morning, everybody, and thanks to Matt for inviting us to come out to speak to you about the Harvest of Death images that we believe were taken out here in the first day's battlefield. There's a number of things we want to talk about, not just the location of the photos, where they were taken, but how they were taken, who took them, the date they were taken, and what they really show. Scott and I have discussed this for many, many years about the Harvest of Death images and all of those related to it, the historiography behind it, and how we come to understand it today. The real story is not so much finding the location, understanding where it was, who came here, whatever. The real story is in those photographs themselves. And anybody who has studied Gettysburg, read about it, looked at the photographs will understand one man's book, and that's a book by William Frasnito, Gettysburg, A Journey in Time. This monumental work came out in 1975, and Bill discusses in depth the Harvest of Death images, as well as the images taken on the right wing, as Gardner put it, which were all basically the same group of soldiers who died on the battlefield of Gettysburg, probably on July 1st, 1863. Since that time, Bill has reinforced his discussion on this in early photography at Gettysburg and through other discussions and magazine articles and things like that. What we know today, though, is this early work does have some minor faults with it in his assumptions of who these men possibly were, where they was located, and also Gardner's journey to Gettysburg, how he got here and who he was in company with. Bill later on finds out that Gardner came from Emmitsburg, from the direction of Emmitsburg, after being mysteriously captured by Stuart, but able to escape on July 5th. Does not arrive on the battlefield really until late on July 5th. By that time, it's too late to photograph anything on the field because he doesn't know where the fighting was. All he knows is one thing, and what is that? One of the ranking generals in the Army of the Potomac was killed in this battle on July 1st. When John Fulton Reynolds fell here at the edge of these woods on July 1st, that news traveled like electricity through the Army of the Potomac and reached the press, what they call the Bohemian Brigade, the press and photographers that were traveling with the Army at that time, and within hours that news had spread all across the North. Philadelphia, Washington, New York, all the newspapers knew it, as did Alexander Gardner. What was his primary objective? And not just getting to the field to photograph the devastation, was also to photograph the site where John Reynolds was killed. That is a primary objective of his. Even though it's not quite as obvious, because the problem is Gardner or his photographers Gibson, O'Sullivan, nor his brother James Gardner ever wrote specifically about their experiences here at Gettysburg and what their objectives were, and even where the photographs were taken until long after the war. This is the problem that Bill faced when he did his research out here on the battlefield, trying to find these locations. You got to hand it to Bill. He did an incredible job in locating so many of these images were lost forever. It goes back to historiography of the battle. What is confusing about these images is when they first appear in this book. Everyone's seen this? Gardner's Photographic Sketchbook in the American Civil War, published in 1866. The war is over. Gardner's got to make some money. So what does he do? He takes all of his album prints, seriographs, puts them together to tell the story of the American Civil War from his experience. And the photographs that he discusses thoroughly began on plate 36, followed by plate 37. And in those descriptions, he talks about not just a harvest of death, describing the scene itself, Federal lying where they fell on the battlefield, basically the bodies undisturbed except for by scavengers who've taken shoes, accoutrements, personal items. But he accompanies that on plate 37 by the field where General Reynolds fell. Anyone familiar with that scene? How did the two tie together? Bill tied those together in A Journey in Time, realizing that these photographs were basically the same group from different angles. And in those views, it tells us a story that these men have not been dragged into a line for burial. They've not been identified in any way. They fell where they fell, and that's where the bodies lie days later when photographers finally get here to Gettysburg to photograph these scenes. Did Gardner come to Gettysburg on July 5th with his photographers? I think we know now that he did not. Timothy O'Sullivan, James Gibson, and possibly his brother James Gardner were with the Army of the Potomac headquarters near Torrington, Maryland, at least until July 3rd. When things were finally clear and they were able to make their journey to Gettysburg, they arrived here on July 5th. We go back to the objective, and this I firmly believe. What is the objective of these photographers, and what communications we know they fed back and forth? Because Gardner himself had left the Army, going back to Washington, either to take care of business or maybe gather more supplies for the photographic unit, but then he diverted. Instead of rejoining the Army, he went to Emmitsburg, Maryland to see his son, who was in a private school down there, because there's a battle going on no more than 8 miles away. He's concerned about the safety of his son and other things. So he is actually very separate from the photographers. The photographers, Sullivan and Gibson, will come here probably about midday to early afternoon, July 5th. As they come into town, everything's in chaos. There's a lot of things going on. The armies have just left. There's still a lot of military personnel around. But what is their one objective? To photograph the field where Reynolds fell. And as it was, they didn't come out here just to find burials and graves and destroyed trees. They found federal bodies still lying, bleaching in the sun, bloated, grotesque. You can only imagine what it was like to smell, the sight. The conditions that day were extremely humid, so trying to get a decent plate and photograph in your camera. The cameras were not like ones we have today, not digital. Very, very difficult to really get a good, clear photograph. Those guys worked for at least 2 to 3 hours to photograph those scenes out there, and exposed, I think, 4 or 5 plates, one of which evidently never survived. But that's how we know those photographs were probably taken on the afternoon of July 5th, 1863, as the federal dead are being buried by their comrades. Details from the 1st Corps and the 11th Corps that come out here to bury all the federal dead. Why are there no Confederates in these scenes? Why are these just federal bodies? We know they're federal bodies by looking at the uniforms. They're all wearing the dress codes. The Confederates buried most of their dead on July 2nd. And that comes from the official records, that comes from personal accounts written by men who were here. They had the sad duty on July 2nd, Pettigrew's Brigade especially, of dragging all of their dead back across Willoughby Run, bury them on what is the old country club property, now the Harmon Farm. And they had the 26th North Carolina Regimental Band playing to try to cheer these guys up. Well, what a job. Nothing's going to cheer you up when you're burying your buddies. Nothing's going to cheer you up when you're trying to identify guys who have been laying out there, possibly stripped of all their ID. Nothing's going to cheer you up. And the sad, sad duty of July 5th, as the 1st Corps troops are out here, details are trying to bury those dead, you can imagine nothing's going to cheer them up. They just want to get this grisly job done. And I have no doubt, for years later, unfortunately no one ever wrote about this, none of those guys, the burial details ever wrote about this. I have no doubt years later, they never got that vision out of their mind of their buddies, their friends laying out here, the bloated carcass is stripped of all identity, shoes, and valuables. And they just stuck them into the ground as quick as they could do it.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the process by which I came to believe 100% that photographs were taken out here. And I also recommended to Matt that we come over here where we might get a little bit of shade. I didn't realize it was going to be 65 degrees on July the 1st after it has been 95 degrees for like 3 weeks. Anyway, the photographs were taken, I believe, down the ridge near the 121st Pennsylvania Monument. One looking that way, one looking that way. And I want to talk about how did I arrive at, I think the photographs were taken here, and what is the evidence in the photograph, and how does that inform why I'm certain the photographs are taken here. So to back up, when Johnny talked about Bill Frasnito's book, Gettysburg: A Journey in Time, I, like many of you out here, read that book. I came to Gettysburg in 1979 as a seasonal ranger with the National Park Service. That was my first season here. And from the very beginning when I got here, I, like many of you, I'm sure, have gone through the same process. You saw these photographs, nobody really knew where they were, and you were like, man, I wonder where they were taken. I'd like to know where that was. But I had another purpose. I didn't care who found out where they were taken. I cared who it was in the photographs. That was what was important. Who are these men? Where were they? How did they die? Who are the people who are in these photographs? They're not just props on a stage. That's how they've been treated oftentimes. It's like they're just a prop that's placed out there. So I, reading Frasnito's book, presumed that the photographers came up, because that's what Bill in, when did he do that book? 75. In 75, he believed they came up the Emmitsburg Road. Because they came up the Emmitsburg Road from the south. They encountered the burial details because the Union 5th Corps on the morning of July the 5th marched out to the Emmitsburg Road, formed up, stacked their rifles, and then burial details from the 5th Corps started to move out from the road and bury the dead. So they moved east and west from the road. Most of the burials were going to be on the east side. And so that's what Fresnito thought. They came up here, they saw all these burial details, there were all these dead everywhere, and they wanted to get death studies, so they started taking lots of photographs, right? That made perfect sense to me. So I focused all my attention, like a lot of us have, if you've ever gone through this journey, on the 3rd Corps battlefield, the left wing of the Army of the Potomac, the right wing of the Army of Northern Virginia, the scene of big fighting between the 3rd and the 2nd Corps and the 5th Corps and Longstreet's men. That's where I was certain, or maybe some of Anderson's division, that was where I was certain those photographs were taken. So when I had time at lunchtime sometimes, or even occasionally on my days off, if I had the spirit move me, I would go out and I would try to figure out where they took the pictures. Now, I did notice some of the evidence in the photograph. I didn't notice all the evidence. I didn't pay attention to all of it. But the evidence that I did pay attention to was, these were infantrymen. This was a line of battle. This was not a skirmish line. There's 21 dead, I believe, at least in the photograph. It did appear to me that in the photograph that's looking to the south, that unit that you can see in the photograph, the dead from that unit attempted to change its flank or refuse its flank because the concentration of bodies were on the left side and they kind of bent back. So I thought, okay, those are some things that tell us, and there was a lot of dead, right? So there's a lot of dead. So, and then we also had that tantalizing thing, that one soldier's hat, it looked like there was a 3rd Corps symbol on it, right? Remember that? A lot of us remember that, seeing that in there. And it turned out, wasn't that, it's a
box, tin box liner out of the cartridge
right,
box.
Right, so
Just
it wasn't a 3rd Corps symbol. But anyway, that's a lot of what we were looking at. Anyway, so I'd go out, I'd try to figure it out, and I could always find some place on the 2nd day's battlefield where one photograph lined up. But I could never find a place that they both lined up. Now, I never even bothered considering the 1st day's battlefield. I didn't even bother, because the photographers never went there. That was what I thought. They came up from the Emmitsburg Road, they were on the south side of the field, that's where they took the photographs, and that's where it had to be, So I just was missing where it was. Now, another part of this story that's a very important part is when Bill Fresnito did that book and he was doing his searching to try to figure out where all these different photographs were taken. It was long, long before the National Park Service did its landscape rehabilitation. When they did the landscape rehabilitation, it changed the landscape. So in the 1970s, the National Park Service had a really bad idea of planting tree screens. They would plant these tree screens to screen out things that were non-historic or didn't look good. And it was a hotel over here along Seminary Ridge that they planted a tree screen that blocked the view. And there was also, you can see woods behind us over here. Those woods, parts of them extended up into the field across here. So if you came out here and you were trying to match up these photographs, you weren't going to be able to do it, because the landscape didn't match. Okay, so I'm figuring it's on the 2nd day's battlefield, and one day one of the historians at the park, she was having a conversation with somebody else, and I heard her say, you know, we ought to consider the possibility these could have been taken on the 1st day's battlefield. And I thought, well, you know, that's kind of interesting. And I didn't think any more of it until I started to seriously look at the evidence that I saw in the photographs. And I began to think about what I was seeing in the photographs. As Johnny mentioned, there's no Confederate dead in the photograph, all right? All the equipment that's usable, all the weapons, all the leather equipment has been taken off of the bodies and has been picked up off of the field. That's also significant. And now think about the photographs that Gardner and O'Sullivan and Gibson take on the Rose Farm, all the collection of Confederate dead out there. Now, when were those Confederate soldiers killed? They were killed on July 2nd in the heavy fighting around the wheat field in Rose's Woods and environs. The Confederates controlled that ground the night of July 2nd. The wheat field itself was kind of a no man's land, so the Confederates were in the woods. So they had an opportunity then to gather their dead and bury their dead, right? And pick up all the equipment and everything like that in that area. They didn't do it. They didn't start to gather the dead for burial until July the 3rd, and by that point, Pickett's charge fails. They get orders to bug out immediately, and their dead are still there on July the 5th when the photographers arrive, and July the 6th, and start photographing that area. So what that tells you is that the idea that these photographs could have been taken between the lines, between the Confederate front lines and the Union front lines, where the 3rd Corps troops had fought and been driven back from and became a no man's land, no way. There is no way that the Confederates had time to go out on the night of July 2nd or night of July the 3rd, pick up all their wounded, all their dead, bury all their dead, pick up all the firearms, all the equipment, all the shoes. Not a chance. So as I looked at that, I was like, you know what? There's only one place on the Gettysburg battlefield that the Confederates would have had the opportunity to police the field like they did in these photographs. That's the first day's battle. You know what? I think maybe I've been wrong, and I think there was somebody, Johnny, who wrote an article or proposed the theory that the photographers had actually come into Gettysburg, not up the Emmitsburg Road, but they had come in from Bullfrog Road and Willoughby Run Road, the way Chapman Biddle's brigade came onto the field on July the 1st. And they hit the Fairfield Road, and they came up this way, and then they saw the burial details out here. So
that was one theory.
That was the theory.
That's since been disproved because Gardner and the account from this man Keener with the Sanitary Commission came with Gardner from Emmitsburg. They came up to the G.J. White Farm, crossed
Right.
at Marsh Creek, and then up the Millerstown Road to the Peach Orchard, arriving at around 6-ish or so. So the idea was, I always thought maybe Gardner came that way if the ice photographers saw the scenes of devastation out here and began to photograph. That's since been disproven, and that was, I take it back.
So here's the part we don't know. We don't know unless somebody finds a hidden account, that it's possible that the photographers, Sullivan and Gibson, that when they were starting up the Emmitsburg Road, someone informed them that there were a whole bunch of federal troops and equipment and wagons and everything like that in the road, and they're going to have a hard time getting through. Someone may have advised them to do exactly what Chapman Biddle's brigade did on July the 1st, is come around. And also, as Johnny mentions, if they're looking to find where General Reynolds was killed, someone may have directed them this way. We don't know. But if they came up the Fairfield Road, they would have seen the burial details who were just arriving out here. Now, the only burial detail that I know of, for a fact, I know came out here was from the 142nd Pennsylvania. Because in their regimental history, they write about burying the dead and finding the dead out here and the condition of the dead and everything like that. And everything that they write about is consistent with what you see in the photographs. So I think what happens is the photographers come out, they see the burial details, they see the dead out here. Someone may have directed them to, this is the area where Reynolds was killed. Now, how would you know where Reynolds was killed? Who would know that? A soldier in the 121st Pennsylvania? Not a chance. Not a chance a soldier in the 151st Pennsylvania knew that. And they were busy. They were fighting. They don't have time to figure out where a general was killed. They might know the general area. And that may also explain why when Gardner titles that one photograph, that the field where General Reynolds fell, well, it's kind of near it. He fell somewhere in this area. The only people who could have taken you to the spot were his staff. Even the 2nd Wisconsin, who's by Reynolds, or near Reynolds when he gets shot, I'm sure no man in that regiment could have told you where he was, because they probably didn't see it. because they were busy with the Confederates who were shooting at them, and they were shooting back at them. So the only people who would have been able to know that was Reynolds' staff, and they're not here. They're not here for the photographers to talk to. So the only thing you're going to get is something that's secondhand from the burial detail, if the burial detail is going to even tell you anything about what they're doing, because they just want to, as Johnny mentioned, they just want to get the job done. But so when I came out here, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years ago, something like that, came up along this ridge, got out of the car, started walking around, and we had done all the landscape clear over here. And instantly it was like, whoop, that's it. Because it was the first place in all these years of looking of anywhere on the battlefield where the landscape and the evidence match. One of the mistakes I think sometimes people make when they're first venturing into this is they always look for the landscape. And then they try to find evidence to match. And it can't work that way. The evidence and the landscape have to blend together. You can't have to cherry pick evidence to make it work. So what we see in the photograph is, as Matt I know has eloquently told you, probably interspersed with a few jokes here and there, very appropriate ones.
Oh,
is that the left flank of the 121st Pennsylvania, the far left unit of Chapman Biddle's brigade, had their flank turned. They attempted to refuse their line. That failed. There was crowding of men on the left. They took a lot of casualties. They had 14 men killed. The unit to the right of them, the 20th New York State Militia, they took, I think, 21 men killed. So the number of killed easily matched the number of dead that you see in the photograph. The evidence you see in the photograph looking to the south matches the evidence that we have of what happened to these units. And then the image that looks off in this direction, the problem with that image is that the background is somewhat indistinct. So some people can say, well, you know, I can't really see the Chambersburg Pike and I can't really see the railroad cut. Even though I think you can see them, they're just not as discernible as they are today because the road is not raised as it is today. And the very background is very indistinct. It's very, very hazy and foggy. But overall, when you look in that direction, the landscape perfectly matches. Now, were the photographs taken down here, you know, that way and this way? Now, there's a fellow named John Cummings who looked at this in depth, and he agreed with me that the photographs were taken out here. He disagreed where they were. He thought they were taken a little bit behind us along this ridge. Hey, he could be right. He could be right. He had a lot of really good evidence in there. He identified all these graves that you can see in the photograph, which are probably graves of men of Colonel Abner Perrin's brigade or Brigadier General Alfred Scales's brigade, because the Confederates buried their dead, and they had a lot of dead in the ground in front of the seminary from the fighting on July the 1st when they assaulted Seminary Ridge. So he could be right. The last thing I'll say about this is that since I wrote about this when I was still working at the park and the blog that the park maintained in those days, there's been a number of people who've come to me with different theories of where they thought the photographs were taken. There's been people who critiqued what I suggested in the blog. I have not seen anything that has dislodged my 100% conviction that the photographs are taken out here. I've not seen a single thing that has changed my opinion, and I'm happy to have my opinion changed. You just got to show me the evidence. Now, I'd say the final thing is the slam dunk, and we may never ever be able to find this, would be if the officer, and there's an officer in the one photograph, he's on a horse, if that officer wrote something and somebody finds it, and he even bothered to mention that there was a photographer, because we think these photographs are so amazing, but for a soldier at that stage of the war, they'd seen lots of photographers. So it may be unlikely that they'd even mention the photographers were out there. But they may mention that the photographers made them pause in their job for a little bit of the burial of the dead. Or if you find a newspaper article that mentions where these were taken, or maybe something from one of the photographers is discovered one day. That's the only way you're going to be able to say it's a slam dunk. But that's how the journey I took to get here. It took me a long time to get to this point. And that's the evidence that I see in the photograph that convinces me this is not anywhere on the second day's battlefield or the third day's battlefield. This is a photograph taken on the first day's field on ground that the Confederate Army securely controlled. So you might ask one other question. Okay, why didn't the Confederates bury the Union dead that were out here? You do not have time on that. Because the soldiers who are burying the dead are combat soldiers. They don't have graves registration people. These are fighting men. And you've detached them from their fighting units. And the only units out here that aren't fighting on the front line is Heath's division, which is back up there along Hare Ridge. And they're only going to detail men to police the field and bury their dead and remove their wounded, and that's a full-time job. They're not going to get to the Union wounded. If the Confederates win this battle and drive the Union Army away towards Washington, then they probably would have buried those dead. But in the midst of the battle, they're not going to bother with it. Okay, Matt, it is back to you. Oh, Johnny.
I just want to add one thing, that all of the photographs that were taken by Gardner and later Brady and many other photographers here, especially the Gardner series, they all tie together. Those first ones probably taken at Gettysburg are indeed those harvest of death images taken out here in the first day's field. But Gardner sees on July 6th, as he reaches the Peach Orchard, comes to the town, probably on the Emmitsburg Road, is scenes of devastation out in the field to the right and the left of him, the field of Pickett's charge, the fighting of the 3rd Corps front. Why aren't there bodies laying all over the place out there? It's unique that he finds those unburied bodies in the Rose Farm as well as the slaughter pen, and their reasons for that is because the Confederate comrades, especially the slaughter pen, Devil's Den, could not get to them. Didn't have the opportunity to go out there and recover those men who were killed behind the boulders and rocks before they had to basically beat feet and get out of there. They never had the chance. Why? Because there were Union sharpshooters all over Little Round Top, all over the base of Big Round Top, making life miserable for anybody who showed his head above a boulder. And we do know from the official records that as Benning's brigade, the last one out of the Devil's Den area, as they withdrew, there was a small group of about 20, I believe, the 2nd Georgia, who were gobbled up by some sharpshooters who saw them down there just kind of wandering around, jumped in, got them, took them out. But all the photographs tie together in many ways. July 4th, I've always called that burying day. And the main reason is that the accounts and the official record reports all state that the day after July 3rd, details were sent out along the 2nd Corps, the 3rd Corps, the 5th Corps front for burying the dead. On Culp's Hill, Cemetery Hill, the same thing occurred overnight, and throughout the morning of July 4th, they dragged Union dead off Culp's Hill, buried them there in the Abraham Spangler farm in long lines where they could easily be identified. They're all tied together. It's unique that the photographers of Sullivan and Gibson came out here, found those Union dead still exposed, lying where they had probably fallen in battle on July 1st. And that's maybe what makes these photos so not just unique, but controversial. And again, it goes back to telling the story. These are not just bodies laying out there. These are sons and fathers of families in Pennsylvania, in New York, and other places who are probably wondering at the same moment those photographs being taken where their son or their father had survived this battle. That's the story of the harvest of death. And that's the story of this battle.
Back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? I've learned recently that the worst thing you can do in life is to have a bad product with good advertising. All right? But I think I got you a good product this time, and I sincerely appreciate these two gentlemen coming out here and putting the cherry on top of Biddle's Brigade right here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have another battle walk two more battle walks at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I hope you'll get hydrated between now and then as we get ready to go out. And please check your schedule. I'm sure you will for the next 2 days that we're out here. These programs which you're witnessing today, ladies and gentlemen, were started by Scott and John. and a guy by the name of Greg Coco. And we're still out here enjoying it today. And we're very, very blessed to have their knowledge with us today. All right. Thank y'all very much.
Can we